3, in 2, in 1.
Hello, and welcome to Purl Perspectives. We are three Purls. I'm Allie.
I'm Anahí.
Champion.
And we have lots of perspectives.
We have so many opinions.
Just too many.
One could argue too many, but I do not think that is the case.
No, I don't think so. I think we just have some spicy ones?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
But not always.
No. Today, in fact, we are coming to you with some perspectives and some experience on something we have all done a lot of. Travel making. In particular, travel knitting. And so today we want to talk just a little bit about things that you should really take into consideration if you're going to be leaving your home for an extended period of time. We're talking days, weeks, whatever, and you want to take some making with you.
Yeah. So if you're going on a train, on a plane, or an automobile,
On a boat.
on a boat,
On a ski float.
on a
Is
bike,
that even a thing?
a mobile home?
Maybe not on
Oh, a mobile home, but you can
Oh.
squirrel away more yarn in a mobile
Yeah.
home.
Regardless, if you're making away from your home for an extended period of time, this episode might be for you.
So we're going to break this episode down into 3 sections. Before you go, while you're away, and after you get back.
Yeah.
So let's start with before you go. What do you make? What do you choose? What do you
I
choose?
personally choose socks.
Same.
Not because I want, not because they're my favorite kind of project, but because I want something that is mostly stockinette.
Yep.
I want something that's in the round, and I want something that's small enough that it can fit in my carry-on or my personal item.
Yeah.
So if I'm traveling with like a small sling bag, I want to fit in the sling bag.
Yeah, so it's all in one place.
Yeah.
If I'm traveling with a backpack, I probably have more stuff in there than I have, space for yarn.
Yeah.
So I also want something that's compact.
Makes sense.
How about you?
I don't like socks. So I don't do socks.
Well, as a non
But I do agree with the stockinette portion. I usually go for something that's like just stockinette work. It'll probably be something like a small top or maybe a toque.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it's ribbing, that's fine. Like ribbing is not like it's not stockinette, but it's fine. But like those are my go-to. But usually a easy summer top or something that's not too.
Yeah.
Because again, you want something small, which is fair.
Exactly.
Like as much as I love sweaters, it's not the most convenient thing to bring on unless I'm there for like a very long period of time, or I'm staying at someone's house and I know I have.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that's a good point to make. If you're going somewhere and you are going to be taking, for example, a plane, and you know that you're going to be spending a lot of time in one place when you get there. So, for example, I fly across the country to visit my sister pretty regularly. When I'm on the plane, I like to take, just like you, a small sock project. I have been knitting socks for a really long time, so I don't need to carry a pattern with me anymore. I know how many stitches to cast on. I know how long to make the cuff. I know how to do the heel flap and turn, etc. So I can just take a bag with the cuff already started, because I like to at least get at least it started and cast on when I'm at home, and then have it all ready to go, and I don't need to think. So when you're in transit, having a project that doesn't require you to think is such a smart thing to do for yourself. If you want to bring a second project, because let's be real, we're crafters, nobody brings just one.
Yeah.
You have at least 7 on your mind, even if you only have 2 in your bag.
So
in your checked bag, you might have one that's a little bit more complex, where you might have a printout copy of the pattern,
or more colors.
Or more colors that might require a little bit more like movement and finagling, maybe a larger sweater project, like you said. That can go in your check bag. That can get pulled out when you're at your destination, when you're sitting around after dinner, chatting with whoever you're visiting, or, over lunch, whatever, when you have some downtime. The larger project is great. In transit, something small, something simple, something that you don't really need to think about, or that doesn't require a lot of colors. That would be our recommendation.
Yeah, and then it's also about where you're going, right?
Yeah.
So depending on where you're going, it'll change. Like if I'm going to visit family where I know I don't have to, I guess it depends on the family. But for me, when I go to visit family, for example, my partner's family, there's no effort, like mental effort. Yes. It's just relaxation. So I can absolutely go for a bigger project where it's like a lot of lace or a lot of pattern. It doesn't matter, right? I can deal with that. even though I won't necessarily use it on the road, plane or whatever, when I get there, it's fine. But if I'm going down south, I may not want something like that. And more importantly, I may not even want wool. I may actually go for cotton or something that's breathable, just because if I'm down south, I don't want to touch
something that's not going to be uncomfortable to work on.
Yeah. And if you're somewhere humid, like if when we go to the beach, I don't want sticky rustic yarn because it's gonna get moist. Yeah. And then that can also affect your tension, your gauge, and the final product.
I really enjoy bamboo.
Yes.
Bamboo is probably my go-to when I'm anywhere that's like really hot.
Yeah.
Tencel for me. Yeah. I'm a big fan. I will take my Tencel project to the beach. That's what I'll work on outside in the heat. I don't care if it gets sandy because I can just shake it out really easily.
That's true.
Because a wool fiber, the sand will get stuck in it. Yeah. But then, in that downtime between when we're done at the beach and when we head to dinner, when we're just hanging out in the hotel room, then I'll pull out my socks. Yeah. I'll work on my wool socks when I'm sitting in the air-conditioned hotel room and under the covers of the blanket. And then that's just the best way that I find to take travel.
I
knitting.
have, last time I traveled, I took with me 3 projects. One pair of socks for the plane that I only worked on the plane there on the plane back, and at the airport.
Perfect.
And then I had 2 garments with me, 2 tops. But what I did is I took out of the working bags the excess yarn. So I only took one
skein.
One skein, the one skein that was already attached to the project. Smart. That's what I took. Yeah. And I put those in my suitcase. Yeah. Okay. So they weren't accessible to me until I got to my destination. Okay. So that for me works really well because it helps me to compartmentalize projects with places. So if you remember a couple of episodes ago, I talked about my jet setter socks, which I only worked on when I was traveling, and that's because it literally lives in my suitcase or in my carry-on.
There you
go. So it's not that I knit for the project. I don't have a deadline for it. I just like having something on my hands when I'm traveling. Now I do make an exception, and that is when I know I'm traveling by train. Okay. Because traveling by rail, at least here in Ontario where we are, is so comfortable. I feel like I have way more space. Yes. I don't need to check my bag. My bag is always with me. Yeah. And I can bring a bigger carry-on, or I can bring my backpack and have it at my feet. Yeah. Yeah. So I've taken sweaters on the train, no problem. If I'm just sleeves or doing the body in the round, I've taken that on the train. If I have something with a chart or something, I don't mind because I can pull out the little tray.
The table and then you just
they have internet, so I can check my pattern. I make an exception for the train because I find that
it's a very different experience.
It's a different traveling experience, but that's just me.
No, I think I agree with you because when we go to Toronto, we usually take the train if I'm not driving, which obviously if I'm driving I'm not knitting.
Good.
Which is annoying.
That would be illegal. That would be very illegal.
Which is annoying, I won't lie. That's 5 hours of my life I'm wasting. But anyway.
Don't knit and drive.
Please. But please. when you're taking the train, it's very nice. It's very you're 100%. But actually I find that there's also a difference depending on what time of year.
Yes.
If I'm going somewhere in the summer versus if I'm going somewhere in the winter. In the winter, I'm even if I'm going somewhere that's a little warmer, I tend to prefer thicker, bigger patterns just because it's you're in the mood in winter to make big sweaters. At least I am. But then in the summer, I'm not so much into big sweater. I say this and I have a sweater, but but usually I prefer tops or smaller things or things that are more airy or breezy, right? The temperature does affect also my decision.
Well, speaking of transit, why don't we talk about some of the tools that we take and don't take with us? Now, if you may have noticed, Anahí and I are brown, and with that comes security concerns.
It's a different set of challenges.
Yeah,
traveling while brown, like you call it, is a whole other experience. So if you are also a melanated human, some of these challenges may apply to you.
Yes.
If you are not, if you have some of life's random privileges, then good on ya. You might get away with a bit more.
So I'll start by saying that every single airport and every single airline will have its own rules. Same thing for trains, same thing for boats in terms of what is and isn't allowed. So whenever the conversation pops up about knitting needles being taken away by security at an airport and everybody has a different experience, that is because they're all traveling from different places in 2 different places. So I would encourage you, if you do want to take knitting needles on the plane with you, to consider a couple of things. Number 1, look up your airport or the security's rules. If you're traveling through the United States, the TSA, the Travel Safety... I can't
Travel
remember.
Security
Administration?
Agency? I don't know.
Whatever the TSA stands for. They have rules that are overarching for the entirety of the United States. In Canada, in the UK, it's more at the airport level that the rules apply. So I would encourage you just to check what those are before you start packing your bag. Now, as a person who travels a lot with knitting, I have come to learn that I'm not going to take my super fine lace tip, sharp pointed knitting needles because they're going to get taken away.
Apparently it's a weapon.
They have been taken away.
And I understand.
I mean, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
I get it because, like, we are people that buy, like, the Chaya goo, like, stainless steel cable.
But at the same time, you could argue that anything could be used as a weapon.
But
if you're smart
I digress here.
So, on that point, I have learned to pack my nice metal needles in my checked baggage, and I travel knit using bamboo needles.
Or plastic
needles. Which is what works for us. Now, everybody has different experiences. Some people have no problems whatsoever.
I also do bamboo because I've had one time somebody give me a warning. Like,
we also
they gave me a warning instead of taking it away. They're just don't do it again.
On the note of checking your airport, yes, but I will add to that, check both of the airports that you're going to. So
and back.
And back, because they might have different security rules. So one time in my experience, I was traveling from here to Mexico to visit my family. On the way from here to there, no problem with my circular knitting needles. They were aluminum with a plastic cable. No problem. On the way back, that same project at security in the airport in Mexico,
worst.
Taken right out.
That hurts my soul.
Yeah.
So in that case, it's recommended that you put a lifeline into your project.
That's a great point.
I think that's a great idea.
If you want to chance it and take some of your maybe more finer pointed metal needles onto the plane with you, if you are a melanated human.
That's right.
Well, I mean, even
if you aren't,
even
you
just don't take any chances.
As well, too, if you're putting it in your bag's getting jostled around when you're in transit. Having a lifeline in is not a bad idea anyway, because you might not bump stitches off your needles, but you might. Which, in turn, is a great segue into some of the tools that Karen has pulled that can help you.
So, here's the first one, so that your needles, so that your project doesn't stick off your needles. Needle stoppers. There's so many different kinds. There's so many, different. These are just cute little ones I just got.
They're adorable.
There's so many of them. They're not you don't even need this. You could literally use them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for all of the notions that you have, I have free alternatives.
Yeah.
So if you don't have needle stoppers, literally erasers.
Yes!
That's great. I was gonna say and I don't drink wine, but you know the
corks.
Corks are also work great.
I have also seen people who have gone ahead, and if they have bigger needles, these are pretty narrow, but if you have chunkier needles, you can just fold your cable like this and put a what's it called, a safety pin here, and then that'll keep them from falling apart, because they'll be, I don't know if you can really, we're probably far away from the thing, but it'll keep them from coming apart this way, right?
That's right.
And so they'll stay on the needles, will hold things in place.
So definitely this is a good one. And then
if you have a smaller project, there's also these little needle sleeves that you can get.
That's right.
Which are fantastic.
Yeah.
So these have snaps on them. They're like a little pocket, and what you do is you put your needles in here, and then snap them close around it. Actually, can I borrow your project? And then you can have your needles hanging out, or the cable, hanging out. Here. They have the stitch stoppers on them, so they'll be a little chunky.
And these work really well for double-pointed needle projects, so if you have a hat or socks,
or if you're doing magic loop as well.
Or if you're doing magic loop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're really great. They're kind of sticking out because the stitch stoppers are on them. But essentially,
you get the point.
But it does actually hold them together and in place. And if you're working on a sock and you're working on magic loop, you can just have the body of the sock coming out from between the snaps like this.
Yeah.
And that'll definitely make sure that things are held in place.
Now, if you don't want to buy one of these or make one of these, hair elastic.
Yeah, those are great.
Then obviously you want stitch markers of any kind.
Yeah.
I prefer like just a small, because that's actually something I was going to mention. Whatever tools you have, don't bring the best things you have.
Things that you
and don't bring all of it.
Exactly. Like bring the necessary stuff that you need for that project. But like, don't bring all your stitch markers. Don't bring this is where I keep most of my notions in this bag.
Yeah.
I would not bring this on my travels. I would bring maybe the pouch, but I would just bring what I need for my project because this thing has so many things.
She's also got this little metal sliding case.
This is full of...
It's full of stitch markers.
But so is this little thing, and that's enough for one project.
But what you could also do is take a little metal container, like an Altoids container.
Or
a
matchbox.
A matchbox, or even like an old container that you had like cream in. Clean that out, and then just put in a handful of stitch markers, maybe a plastic darning needle, some stitch stoppers if you have just the few things you might need, and reduce it down to a tiny size that you can then either throw into your carry-on bag alongside your project, or tuck into your suitcase where you know where it is.
Would that be permitted?
Yeah, it's metal.
It will.
Okay.
It will. Yes.
Security might like pull out your bag and check and be like, "What is this?" But then,
ma'am, why do you have a solid metal?
But as soon as they open it and they see that it's just a case with stuff inside, they're like, "That's fine." I can't even tell you the number of times my bag has been flagged for secondary search, and then the person gets it and they look at the X-ray and the person's like, "It's knitting needles. I don't even need to open your bag." And then passes it back completely untouched. So it's becoming more and more common in transit, in security, to recognize the tools of the trade, crochet hooks as well, although maybe don't take your super fine ones.
No, I would say if you're traveling with crochet, go with something chunkier if you can.
Yeah, plastic.
Don't bring your lace hooks. Those do qualify as a sharp object, and they might be taken away from you.
Yep. We had a friend of ours who has this really funny story about having a crochet hook almost taken away in, I think, the Istanbul Ataturk airport, where the security agent said, "It's forbidden," and mind using it in a negative way.
Oh no!
Wait, I don't get it. What?
Well, I don't want to say it on the podcast exactly. I'll mime it later, but essentially, after this friend of ours indicated, after this friend indicated what it was used for, they received it back, but the security agent was like, "This is a weapon. Don't do it again." So,
so I will say. Number one, don't bring your nicest stuff, even though it's close to you and you want it and you want it because you want to use it. Yep. Don't bring it if you're traveling because there is a small chance that you might not return home with it.
Yeah, they could lose your luggage.
Exactly.
It could be taken away from you. It could get damaged in transportation. There's many things. Or you could lose it while you're over there.
And number two, be ready to answer some questions honestly. And respectfully. Yeah. Just because somebody at security doesn't understand what you have on your person, don't put yourself in danger. Don't try to be combative about it. That's why we don't take our nice stuff, because if it's not allowed, then it's not allowed.
And then if it gets taken away, that just gives you one more reason to search out a yarn shop at the place you're going.
Oh my God. No. You mean I have to go to a yarn store?
There was a vendor who was at Knit City, Toronto this year. Karina of Louie and Lola Yarn traveled from Tasmania to Toronto to vend alongside Thread and Maple, which is a Montreal-based company, and had her needles taken away at, I think, the second of 3 airports she was transiting through, and was really upset. The community rallied around and was like, "We'll bring you more. Don't worry. We'll provide you with supplies." But she took it as an opportunity to visit a couple of different yarn stores in the places that she was visiting and meet people that she hadn't anticipated meeting, and then, purchase some new needles at the same time. So turn it into an opportunity to community build.
That's
exactly.
Right.
So, speaking of getting to where you're going, things to consider while you're away. How much are you actually going to work on your project?
Yeah, let's be real, okay? Reality check. You're probably not going to finish both sleeves of that garment that you took. You probably aren't going to need the 74 different colors of the color work chart. Maybe don't take that one.
Nope.
And honestly, if you're only going for 5 days, you don't need 12 different projects.
No.
Okay.
For every project you put in your bag, minus the number of days you're going to go, and then take that many bags out of your project.
That's right.
Out of your suitcase. Because I've definitely done that, where I have packed like 6 or 7 projects, and then it's like, I'm only going to Vancouver for 4 days over Christmas.
Yeah, you're not gonna have like
back out.
If this is like a family gathering with celebration,
We can't do that.
I'm not doing that one when I'm surrounded by family. Excuse me. So it's good to be realistic about the time, because chances are you're going somewhere for a reason.
Yeah.
If you're seeing family, if you're going to see the sights, if you're going for a special event, your time is going to be focused on something else. And yes, you want to have a project that you can work on while you're there, but don't expect yourself to do something from start to finish in that short period of time.
Exactly.
It's
Manage
not fair
your
to
expectations for yourself.
I think the only time you can actually see real progress on like you can say, okay, there's potential for me to do real progress, is if you go on an actual like vacation where you're like sitting on a beach or like sitting at a cottage for like literally 5 days. Yeah. But then even then, I would argue that a lot of time when I've done this, it was like too much. Yeah. And I don't mean too much knitting. I just mean like I was like taking everything in, and it was like knitting is fine. Like knitting is fine, and I would still do it, but I would also like be overwhelmed by everything else, and like, you know, like there were also so many other experiences to do, even when it's just a beach, or well, not just a beach, but you know, like sitting on a beach or going to a cottage. It's, you're not going to knit as much as you think you are, even in cases like that.
I can give you a good example for this. Last December, I flew to visit my sister for the Christmas holidays. I think we were there for like 7 days, 8 days, and I was like, oh, I'm going to start. I like to knit a sweater every holiday season, or at least get one started so I can get the bulk of it done. So I cast it on the neck. I did the neck ribbing while we were on the plane. When we got there, I was like, oh, I'm going to like scream through the yoke, and I'm going to have it separated for sleeves by the time we come back. Maybe I'll even have a bunch of the body done. That was, in hindsight, really not a good idea, because I needed to sit and I needed to think about the increases. I needed to make sure that I was doing them in pattern. I needed to make sure I was doing the right number of them, and it involved a lot of counting. So that meant that every time I sat down to knit, I wasn't involved and engaged in the conversations with my family.
And you're missing some precious moments.
So more often than not, I didn't actually even pick that project up. I reached for the socks that I had also brought, because that I can do without thinking.
Yeah.
So if you do want to bring a larger, slightly more complex pattern with you, make sure that while you're in transit, or before you even get on the plane, train, boat, automobile, you've actually gotten through a good chunk of that more complex part. And so you are only doing the sleeves, or only doing the body, or you're at a point where you've memorized the pattern, so you don't need to sit down and think about it every time you do. Because if you have to expend that much mental energy while you're on vacation knitting, you're probably not going to reach for your project.
Well, that's the thing, because I was going to say also, regardless of what happens, at the end of the day, even if you just like lounged all day, I don't know about you, but for me, vacation drains my energy. So at the end of the day, let's say you spend time with family or friends or whatever, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna, get a few hours knitting. Chances are you're gonna be too tired to do something very complicated. You're gonna be exhausted. You're in a new place, new environment. It's not your home. It's not your routine. You've traveled, so take something that's easy, so that there's no, the mental doesn't need to like,
it becomes part of the joy of your trip, and not a stumbling block to the enjoyment of your trip.
That's right.
That's a good thing to do.
I will also say, think about what kind of activities you're going to be doing during your travels. So, for example, I'm going to be going to a theme park very soon.
That's exciting.
And I want to take something with me. Am I going to take something big? No, because I'm very likely just going to be standing in lines all day.
So perfect to just pull out a sock.
To just pull out of my bag in something like this.
You might need something like this,
which I do have, a yarn twister. So something like really quick, like I'm thinking about bringing a muscle bra.
Oh, good call.
Right? Because I bought some yarn that I actually want to show y'all.
These things are awesome.
Parenthesis, we went to Twist yarn, and I found a dyer there that had a colorway that looked exactly like my hair.
Yes! Uncanny.
It was like, because it doesn't show very much, because it's a little bit the colors are different, but the front of my hair was green,
Yep.
and then it had some blue and some purple.
It looks like the Aurora Borealis. And so does this yarn.
And so this yarn looked exactly like that, and my friend Vanessa pointed at it from a distance and I was, that looks exactly like your hair. So now I want to make a muscle bra hat with this, so that even when it washes out, I'll still look like my...
And that's a good example of a project where you don't need to think. So you'll probably do all of the crown shaping.
I will do the crown
before you leave.
And then you can just do that huge tube, which
depending on what size you make, anywhere between 18 to 23 inches of stockinette tube before you have to do the decreases at the other end.
And I don't have, there are no rows that I need to count.
You just length.
No,
yeah,
exactly.
So I can stop at any stitch in any point of the pattern, and I never have to check because it's just stockinette all around.
Yeah. Perfect to just tuck in and go. And what's great too is once you get long enough, you can put the ball of yarn in the project itself.
Yes, this is fun.
Exactly. But if you're going on a family vacation where you're probably just gonna, if your family's anything like mine, you just have a big meal multiple times a day, and then you sit at the table and chat for the rest of the time. So if that's what you're gonna do, it doesn't really matter if you have a bigger project. You just pull it out. You can be doing some sleeves. You can be doing something bigger. You can be doing something textured or patterned, because you're gonna have the time and you're gonna be at a table or at a sofa chatting away.
Yeah. I will add a tiny little caveat of something that I have just remembered. If you are going to visit a family member for whom you are actively creating something for them, I highly encourage that you bring it with you, because they're going to ask about the progress.
I was going to say, maybe you don't bring it just to like mess with them, or because you don't want them to know.
If you don't bring it and they know about it, they're going to be like, why aren't you working on my vest out there? And if you do bring it...
Speaking from special, personal experience here.
If you do bring it with you, that's also a great opportunity for them to try it on. For you to get some updated measurements, right?
That's right.
And to use that visit to further your making aims.
Okay.
So just a happy little
just think
aside.
about what you're going to be doing.
Yeah. And write those measurements down as you go, because if you're like me and you don't, then you have to message your sibling and be like, do you have a tape measure and can you get me a number?
Can you measure around your boobies?
Because your bicep.
There is nothing more frustrating than in the moment them trying it on and being like, I want it to fall about this much further than my jeans, and you being like, oh, that makes so much sense, but then not actually having a number for that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of trial and error that goes on when you anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, which then I think is a great segue into what to do after you come back from your traveling and you have these travel projects.
Don't unpack. Leave it in there until you go on vacation again, probably 6 to 8 months later.
So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is add it to your pile of whips on your couch and work on it sporadically until it's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And number 3, which I think you're probably most likely to do, is pull it out and make it your main project and finish it within 3 weeks of returning from vacation.
That's literally what I do. I get this obsessive behavior, like when I hit a certain amount, like a certain part in the project where it's like, go,
like,
yeah.
Gotta finish
so
it.
if I'm there when I come back, it's go.
Yeah. I am not very conscientious in doing this, but I do have a bit of a tier system. So when I cast on a project to take with me traveling, that's the traveling project. And then it can, when I come back home, it can graduate, right?
Yeah.
So it can graduate and go on to become a commuting project, in which case it's small enough that it fits in my work bag.
Yeah.
So I just take it with me when I'm on the train or the bus, or just like on the way to work and on the way back. Or it can graduate to going on the pile of whips for me to take to
knit night or something.
Or it can turn into a home project. So this happens a lot when, for example, I really like working, like I said, on the stockinette part of a garment if I'm traveling. But if I've done the sleeves and now it's time for me to do something more complicated, like back and front panels for the body, then I can it no longer counts as a portable project. So it becomes a couch project. It graduated to a home, right? So you have to come home and evaluate, where did you leave off?
Yeah.
And is that project graduating to some other context?
Some other place,
Mm-hmm.
I like to do the thing because I, like so many other makers, you know, something new is going to grab your eye and you're going to want to do that. When I come home from a trip and I have a project and it's 30-40% done, these are just random numbers, and it's still in progress, I'll actually put it on the couch beside me, but I will intentionally not touch it for 3 or 4 days. I'll scratch the itch of wanting to cast on something new and work on something else by picking up one of my other languishing whips and just getting the bug out from doing that, because it's something different from what I've been working on for the last week. And then once that like thrill of working on something other than that one project has passed, then I'll return back to that vacation project and I'll make sure that it's in my rotation of regular whips so that I can actually finish it within a pretty close timeline to when I came back from
That's
that trip.
really smart.
That's very smart.
Because if I don't, if I force myself to work on it when I get home, I'm going to resent it. And I don't want to associate that negative emotion with that really fun trip.
Especially because you probably ended up spending all the time like working on that one or two project the entire trip long. So where if you're used to working on like 5 different whips at the same time, like you kind of like have to scratch. See, I don't have as much that problem because
you're very monogamous.
Yeah, like
we said you're a whip triad. That's what we said last time.
Like 2 or 3 projects at the most. So chances are, unless I've casted a new one for the purpose of traveling, it'll be the same ones that I work on when I get back home.
Yeah.
I also like to give myself a bit of a deadline. So, for example, when I go on like a beach vacation and I bring something that's tencel or cotton or whatever, that's warm weather wear I'm making.
Yeah.
So I give myself that kind of arbitrary deadline of I want to be able to wear it that summer. So I'll give myself the grace of, okay, I went on vacation in February. It's not really going to be wearable until like May or June with the heat. So I'll give myself that 3-4 month period. But I'm also like, I need to have it finished before the summer so I can actually enjoy it.
Now, I'll add one more to this, and it's to allow yourself to come back home, decide you don't actually like it, and frog it.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna frog it, do it right then. Because otherwise, you're gonna let it linger. It's gonna accumulate bad juju. And then you're never gonna want to do it. And then that's just yarn and materials that you have lingering around, and what is it called, like languishing. And you don't want that kind of energy. You don't want that vibe in your life. So if it served you well while you were traveling and you had fun and it kept you occupied, then it has served its purpose. But if you come home, see it in a different light, and decide I'm actually not gonna wear this, or I don't actually like how it's coming along, give yourself permission to frog it and turn it into something else.
I've heard stories of people who have gone on trips to deal with like not negative things, but like maybe they're dealing with some family issues, and they want to be making because that brings them comfort, but they don't want to keep the thing. So as soon as they return home after dealing with everything that's happened, ripped it out, gifted the yarn somewhere else, and have moved that negative energy that was a tangible thing while they were dealing with whatever they had to deal with, and intentionally passed it on so that somebody else can find joy in something that they don't feel happy with anymore.
A good example is you and I started the pedal party crop top at the same time. And I took it with me while we were on vacation. And on vacation, it worked out really well. But as soon as I came home, I started having trouble with it. I couldn't remember where the lace, what lace step I was on. And then my dog stepped on it and some of the stitches fell off the needle. And it was just accumulating
one
a lot
thing
of
after
negative.
another.
And I was like,
it was stressing you out.
It was stressing me out. And I was like, you know what? Last week when we were on vacation, this served me very well. But I don't think now, at home, I want to save it.
No.
And that's okay.
Which worked out, because when you did end up frogging it, you then turned around and used that same yarn for our vacation the following year and completed a project that you absolutely love.
I love that. It's the rocket tea.
So, give yourself permission to just say, no, I don't want to keep going on it.
Whatever you choose to do, don't leave it in your suitcase. Take inventory. Do an assessment when you come home and see how you feel about the project that you took with you. And if you lost some of the notions along the way,
that's okay. Notions can be bought again.
And if you did, in fact, pick up souvenir yarn while you were away, log it in your stash, but you don't have to put it in your stash right away. Put it in a project bag. Get it ready to go. Even if you don't want to cast on right away, get that project prepped for when you're ready and you're like, oh, I really am feeling nostalgic for this trip I went on. Wait! I have that fancy yarn.
That's right.
I'm just going to knit myself a little scarf out of it.
Yeah.
And have that joy of that trip come back around later on.
So whatever you end up doing, make sure you enjoy your travels. Take it easy. Don't take your fancy stuff, and make sure whatever is on your hands is bringing you comfort and is bringing you joy. And if it doesn't, then
frog it.
It's okay to frog it. So I think with that, we've come up to the end of our...
We have more perspectives and perspectives and perspectives and perspectives on travel making, but for now we'll leave it here. Yeah. Let us know what you like to take with you when you travel, be it hand sewing, crocheting, tatting lace, whatever. Let us know what works for you.
And do you have any funny vacation stories with your making?
Yeah.
We want to hear those too. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Purl Perspectives. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.